I used to have a coworker, this is years ago. He was what people call a new Christian. He had just found God, just started going to church, and he had a lot of questions, which it's understandable. I mean, new Christians always do. You literally just turn your world upside down. So you have a lot of questions. One of the questions he asked me one day, I mean, he knew I grew up in the church. He knew a lot about my theological background, my Christianity. So I was one he felt safe coming to. So when he did, he asked me a question one time. It took me a second because I didn't quite understand his question. When he first came to me, he says, "How do I know if I'm praying right?" And it took me, I wasn't sure I heard the question right, because, well, when you pray, I mean, we all know when you pray, you just pray. He says, "How do I know if I'm praying right?" And it took me about a good 3 seconds, and because, like I said, I didn't understand. I never figured that question. And the answer I gave him was, well, do you feel connected with God when you pray? And he said, well, most of the time. And I said, as long as you feel connected, you're good. But as time went on, I got thinking about it. And I thought, well, okay, is there a right way and a wrong way? And so I did some research, and it turns out that, yes, there is actually a wrong way, believe it or not. And it is in Matthew chapter 6. And this is when Jesus and the disciples were having dinner. This is at the same time. This leads into when Jesus teaches them the Lord's Prayer. And Jesus says, okay, Matthew chapter 6, we'll start at verse 7. It says, "And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him." And then the next verse he goes into and teaches in the Lord's Prayer. So I thought, okay. So I looked for other places in the Bible where it says, pray this way but not this way. This is the only passage I can find. The only one I can find that says, don't do this. Everywhere else says, pray constantly, And I even found one, in my study Bible, I found one thing. They said, you can pray for the same thing over and over, but don't get repetitive. Don't say the same thing almost in chant form. So when, going back to this friend of mine, or a coworker, after I told him, as long as you feel connected, you're good. He says, well, is it okay to pray for myself? And I said, absolutely. I said, but it also depends on what you're praying for. So, are you praying that you win the lottery and don't have to have a job anymore? Or are you praying, that God lead you to a better life? So absolutely you can pray for yourself. You gotta be careful what you pray for. And they said, what about people I don't even know? And I said, well, people do that all the time. Around here, just, a month and a half ago, we had huge fire, 20, 30,000 people, their homes burned to the ground. There were a lot of prayers for them. I don't know a single person who lives there, but I still did. And he says, and this was years ago, this fire just recently happened. But I told him, so I said, natural disasters, people pray for them. And he says, no, that's not what I mean. I said, okay, then what do you mean? And he told me, he says, well, he kind of shuffled his feet, dug his toe in the dirt a little bit. And he says, I mean, he's like a celebrity. He says, is it okay to pray for them? And I said, yeah. I said, I said, but again, it's in what way? I said, are you praying that whatever movie they're in, is a box office smash, or is what, it all depends. And I explained to him that, I personally do have one celebrity per se that I do. I pray for this person constantly. They have been through a lot of none of their own doing. And it's really, through social media and things that's come out, it has very much affected them. So I do, for about probably the last 2-3 years. I've been constantly praying for this person. And so really, who you pray for is no big, there is no sky's the limit. I mean, whoever you want to pray for. And Matthew is the only place I found in the Bible that tells you how not to pray. And then he says, and he finally was, and when I finally got the question straightened out, when he said, how do I pray? Am I praying right? I finally kind of understood what he was saying. And I said, okay, how do you view God? I said, do you view God as like, they show on like The Simpsons, where, the long white beard, the flowing robe, all this? Or I know some people didn't have really the best parents in the world, so they view God as that parent they never had. Some people view God or Jesus as, a close friend, their best friend. On road trips, they're sitting in the passenger seat, someone to talk to on road trips. Or some people, it's a combination of all three, whatever they need at the moment. So how you view God really is how you're praying at that time. And how you pray, I don't see anything, there's nothing in here says how. Just, this is, don't get repetitive. Don't say the same thing over and over and over and over. So you've got how you view God. All right, let's say you see God as the, like they show on cartoons, the long flowing robe, the beard, all this. That's, if that's how you view him, you tend to pray, on your knees, hands folded, very proper English. You choose your words very carefully, everything proper. Whereas some people, as I said before, view God as, that wonderful parent they never had. At that point, if you do, that's when usually you come to God and you're more like, and you become more childlike as you're asking your parent for something. All the way to, if you view God as that best friend you never had growing up, your prayers seem to be more relaxed. It's not such the formal. And the thing is, all three of those types of prayers are correct. They're not wrong. And it all depends on where you are mentally at the time. Because now there's one prayer everyone has. Everybody, I don't care who you are, at one point or another in your life, you are on your knees and almost screaming, I messed up, please help. Everyone has been at that point. You've been on your knees because things have hit rock bottom. And when you're on your knees, that's when everyone prays the same. It's all just in desperation. I messed up. Please help me. So no matter how you pray, no matter what form of prayer, be it hands folded, kneeling on the edge of your bed before you go to sleep, or the the, road trip God that, as you're driving, hey, hand me the Doritos type thing. As long as you feel connected. And as soon as you feel that connection, there's no way to describe it. But anyone who's been deep in prayer has felt it. You know there is someone there on the other end. You know there is, without question. And as long as you've got that, you know your prayers are being heard. You may not always like the answer, but there are no words to describe that connection. But anyone who has prayed has felt it. That you know there's someone over there hearing what you're saying. Now, going back to the Bible verse, all right, Matthew 6, it's verse 7 actually. When you pray, do not keep on babbling like the pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. All right, now, honestly, I've not done a whole lot of research on the pagan rituals, the pagan worshiping, but I do know that the pagans were very fond of chanting. So, you got your chanting. Anyone who's heard chanting, it same over and over and over. It's the same words. And so Jesus was trying to kind of get through to them that, that's not how you do it. You come to God with your problems, leave it at his feet and go. And so, Jesus I don't believe he was downgrading the pagans at this time. He was just kind of using him as an example. So it goes back to what my ex-coworker asked. How do you pray? Just as long as you're connected. Don't say more than needs to be said. Just come to God, give him what you have to say, leave it with him, and go about your day. Or go to bed at night. Whenever you pray. Really, okay, I'll say you should be praying constantly, but we're not gonna judge that one right now. So basically, in this entire Bible right here, there's only one place in there, only one, where it says, do not pray this way. So as far as prayer goes, as long as you feel connected, no matter who you're praying for, no matter what you're praying for, if you feel connected, if you know there's God on the other end and you just know it and he's listening, you're praying correctly. And again, God knows, God has a plan for all of us. You may not like his answer. You may not like what he has to come back with for your prayers. But there's a certain comfort. It's not even a certain. There is full comfort in knowing that you feel that connection, that you know God is listening. So in your prayers, say what you need to say. Ask what you need to ask. You don't have to repeat yourself. Jesus flat says don't. There is nothing wrong with praying for yourself. There's nothing wrong with praying for your cat, for your dog. There's nothing wrong with praying for some celebrity you've never met, but you know needs God's hand. In fact, situations like that, God smiles on. So as you go about your day, have confidence and have strength in your prayer. Just don't repeat yourself. Give it to God and let Him handle it.